My stepfather kicked me out of his house to make room for his biological daughter, who's expecting a baby and wants space for his real grandchild. Now, a year later, he's the one who's been thrown out. I'm a 25-year-old woman who had been living with my mother, 48, and my stepdad, 52, in his home for the past 3 years. My stepsister, Ella, who is 28, also stays here because her husband works abroad. From the very beginning, Ella and I have never gotten along, and the tension between us has only intensified as time went on. Ever since our parents began their relationship, Ella made it crystal clear she disapproved. She would roll her eyes whenever my mom was mentioned and constantly made snide remarks about how her dad deserved better. When our parents tied the knot 5 years ago, Ella skipped the ceremony, pretending she had an urgent work commitment. However, I later discovered through a mutual friend that she was actually enjoying herself at a beach party, snapping selfies and drinking margaritas while our parents exchanged vows. After the marriage, Ella's behavior shifted from merely distant to outright hostile. When I moved in 3 years ago, she welcomed me by leaving a strict set of house rules on my bed. These rules seemed to be designed specifically for me, like insisting on quiet hours starting at 8 p.m. and demanding 48-hour notice for any guests. Unsurprisingly, she never bothered to follow these rules herself. Since then, Ella has gone out of her way to make me feel uncomfortable and out of place. She would accidentally spill drinks on my clothes at least once a month, always claiming it was unintentional, yet never offering to clean up or pay for the damage. She would help herself to food I had clearly marked in the fridge, then turn it around by insisting I must have eaten it and forgotten. She'd also throw hurtful comments about my appearance, asking if I'd given up whenever I wore sweatpants around the house or hinting that I should do something about my acne. One particularly unforgettable event took place about a year ago. I had a box of cherished childhood keepsakes stored in the garage, things like old report cards, art projects, and photos. One day, I went to retrieve something from the box and discovered it had disappeared. When I confronted Ella, she casually mentioned that she had tossed it out while organizing the garage. She claimed she assumed it was just a bunch of old junk and dismissed my distress as if I was overreacting. Losing those irreplaceable memories still breaks my heart. To maintain some peace, I've made every effort to minimize my encounters with Ella as much as possible. I mostly stay confined to my room when I'm home, only stepping out to use the bathroom or grab a quick bite from the kitchen. I've taken to doing my laundry late at night just to avoid crossing paths with her. I even purchased a mini fridge for my room so I could store basic groceries without the constant worry that Ella would help herself to them. But when you share a home, it's impossible to avoid someone entirely. Family meals are the worst, filled with tension. Last Thanksgiving, Ella ignited a massive argument at the dinner table, accusing me of flirting with her husband before he left for his job overseas. It was completely baseless. I barely exchanged more than polite small talk with him. Yet Ella launched into a tirade, accusing me of constantly throwing myself at him and claiming she couldn't trust me around her marriage. The accusation was so ridiculous that I was left speechless. My mom tried to calm the situation, but my stepdad just sat there, not once standing up for me. The argument ended with Ella storming away from the table, leaving me in tears. This sparked a huge divide within the family, with relatives taking sides and causing holiday plans to fall apart. Throughout all this chaos, it's become painfully obvious that my stepdad favors Ella. He never misses an opportunity to brag about her achievements, no matter how small. If she gets a minor raise at work, he acts as though she's been named the president of the company. Meanwhile, when I graduated last year, he barely gave it any recognition. He also constantly excuses Ella's bad behavior. When I complained about her eating my food, he just brushed it off, saying, "That's how sisters are." When I brought up the fact that she had thrown away my treasured belongings, he told me I was clinging to the past and should be thankful for the decluttering. But if I so much as leave a dirty dish in the sink or forget to take out the trash, he gives me long lectures about respecting his house rules. Things came to a breaking point last week when Ella announced she was expecting a baby. Her husband had just left again for his work overseas, so she plans to stay here for the duration of her pregnancy. My stepdad was thrilled at the idea of becoming a grandparent. He immediately started talking about converting the guest room into a nursery, discussing paint colors and crib designs with excitement. The very next day, my stepdad pulled me aside for a serious conversation. He explained that, with Ella's pregnancy, the house was becoming too cramped and that she would need extra space and support over the coming months. Then he hit me with the news. He thought it was time for me to start searching for a place of my own. After living here for years and contributing to the household expenses, I was suddenly being told to leave because Ella is pregnant. Update. I happened to overhear my stepfather having a conversation with my mom in their bedroom. He was pushing her to persuade me to move out, saying things like, "Ella needs a calm environment for the baby," and "it's time for your daughter to be independent." He also mentioned that Ella had been complaining about feeling uneasy with me being around. My mom seemed reluctant, making noncommittal sounds, but she didn't put up much of a fight. In the days that followed, my stepdad launched an all-out effort to force me out of the house. He started leaving flyers for apartments on my bed, highlighting rent prices that were way beyond my budget. He would speak loudly about how beneficial it is to live on your own whenever I was within earshot, telling stories about how he became a better person after getting his first place. He even offered to cover my first month's rent if I managed to find a place quickly, pretending like he was doing me this massive favor. One evening, he cornered me in the kitchen and started listing all the reasons why I should pack up and leave. He said I was preventing Ella from feeling fully settled, that I was a financial strain on the family even though I contribute rent, and that it was selfish for me to occupy space when Ella needed it more. He even hinted that my presence might be causing stress, which could be harmful to Ella's pregnancy. I was both hurt and angry, especially considering how hard I've tried to be a considerate housemate. The final straw came when my stepdad changed the Wi-Fi password and refused to give it to me. He said he'd share it with me only after I showed him proof that I was actively searching for apartments. It felt like a petty move, and it made working from home almost impossible. I had to rely on my mobile data just to attend online meetings for my job, which quickly ate up all my data plan. Finally, I decided to confront my mom about everything. I asked her directly if she wanted me to leave. She danced around the question, eventually admitting that she and my stepdad had been discussing asking me to move out, but she hadn't agreed to anything concrete yet. She seemed caught between supporting me and keeping peace with her husband. I told my mom I wasn't ready to move out yet. I'm still saving up for a down payment on my own place, and the current rental market around here is outrageous. Even a tiny studio apartment would swallow up most of my monthly income. Besides, I don't think it's fair that I'm being pushed out just because Ella is expecting. There's more than enough room in this house for all of us if Ella and I could just find a way to get along. My refusal to leave has caused an enormous uproar within the family. Ella has taken on the role of the victim, insisting that the stress of living with me might negatively impact her pregnancy. She's been dramatically placing her hand on her belly and wincing every time I walk into a room. My stepdad is furious and has started giving me the silent treatment, communicating only through passive-aggressive notes stuck to the fridge. Even some relatives have jumped into the fray. My aunt called to tell me I was being inconsiderate and that family should always come first. My cousin messaged me on Facebook, telling me to grow up and stop relying on my parents for support. It feels like everyone is turning against me, and nobody is taking my perspective into account. The whole ordeal has seriously damaged my relationship with my mom. I feel like she's not standing up for me, choosing her new family over her daughter. We used to be really close, but now there's this awkward tension between us. I often catch her giving me these sad, guilty looks, but she still won't directly confront my stepdad on my behalf. Meanwhile, Ella is making the most out of her pregnancy. She's constantly asking my stepdad to run out at odd hours to satisfy bizarre cravings. She's taken over the living room with baby books and parenting magazines. She even started blasting Mozart through speakers, claiming it's for the baby's development. But I'm pretty sure she's doing it just to irritate me since she knows I'm trying to work from home.